I think I've organically just kind of grown this for myself because there are things that matter to me. And then slowly you start discovering, like, there's a local company in Carlsbad. Her company is amazing. They make edible coffee cups. And some locals might know her. It's called Amai, and I might be pronouncing it wrong, but she started making them out of oat. And it's turned into her taking byproducts from all the brewing that goes on in our area with craft breweries. And now there's this like circle of life of this product that originally started making beer and now is being turned into an edible coffee cup that people can use commercially to eliminate waste. Coffee cups, plastic lids, all of the above. This replaces that item. And it's actually probably growing faster than they can keep up with. But it's things like that. And I'm like, this is amazing. It took one person thinking outside of the box and creating a product that could eventually change the world on disposable, consumption in that. She could do anything with it. I know Gelato Love locally uses her product.
Namaste, sweet souls. My name is Shilpa, and you're listening to the Omni Mindfulness Podcast. I am a mindset and meditation coach for professional women and mompreneurs. The purpose of this show is to offer stories and content that allows you to increase your awareness of your authentic self and be inspired by connecting to the personal and professional stories of other souls. Souls who are walking the walk and living everyday human experiences with inspired intentions. These are the stories that will expand your consciousness and spark within you to ask, what if? Each season, I offer content to help you create a holistic lifestyle that embodies spirituality, mindfulness, mindset, and energy awareness. Through my conversations with experts in their niche area and solo casts from yours truly, my intention is to help you holistically revitalize, reset, and relax your body, mind, and spirit. I'm your host and founder of Omni Mindfulness. So ask yourself, what if just one story could be the catalyst to shift the trajectory of my life? What if I become instrumental in serving other souls to realize their true self? And what if my soul's higher purpose is in the realization of Omni Mindfulness joy? It's never too late to rewrite your story. And now, today's episode. Welcome back, sweet souls. This is your host, Shilpa. I wanted to share some exciting news about a little challenge I'm running as I'm trying to get more people to discover this podcast and the conversations that inspire those who value personal growth. And the best way to do that is to leave reviews. You can leave a review on Spotify, Google Podcast, or Apple Podcast. So my request to you is to leave a review if you feel that you've received any value at all from these episodes of Omni Mindfulness. It would mean so much to me if you could write a little review regarding any episode that resonated with you. Please take a screenshot of that review and email it to me at omnimindfulness@gmail.com. In return, I will offer you my one-page guide to spark your meditation practice through Sankalpa. Sankalpa is a Sanskrit word for intention setting. Along with this, you'll receive a link to my guided meditation that will guide you through an intention setting meditation, positive affirmations, which you can practice daily. I guarantee that this gift will help you start a daily intention setting practice with a spark. It is my gift for you for being a listener, being a supporter, and of course, to enable you to manifest the best meditation practice. We are now in the 6th podcast season. Each month, my guests and I explore a facet of how mindfulness applies to modern-day living. In April, my guests and I delve into the topic of eco-conscious living. The topic of courage and resiliency is covered in May, and wrapping up the season of mindfulness in June with the topic of heart-centered awareness. Stay tuned. And up next is one of my favorite returning guests who epitomizes the very meaning of eco-conscious and healthy living. Tish embodies the essence of taking care of our planet and extends her compassion to all sentient beings. A resident of Carlsbad, California, Tish currently works for the Carlsbad Village Association and has spent the majority of her career in the fitness industry. On her own time, she spearheads grassroots efforts to make a positive impact on our environment. Tish was originally in school for law and changed course after working in the fitness industry during school and seeing the effect she could have in this part of people's lives. Over the years, as she coached other women, she noticed women who struggled to try to make changes in their life, and her empathy grew even stronger. This experience for her translated into learning that the smallest things all start to add up. And she understands that it takes time and patience and effort to make meaningful changes. So you just have to be in there for the long haul. It is from this experience that became the catalyst for her passion for making impactful changes on how we treat our environment, our animals, and other humans in general. Tish believes in micro changes for big impact. And now, here's Tish. Tish, thank you for coming back. I love you so much.
I'm so excited to come back.
Well, it's been a few months since you've been on my show.
I feel like I don't want to monopolize this podcast, but I love these conversations. So
I want you back each time. And, I've known you for a long time. In fact, the first show and the first couple of times you've been in the show, it was because I've known about not only your fitness expertise, but also the fact that you're very passionate about the environment. So maybe you could share where that's at, aside from all the other awesome things you do in your life.
The passion projects.
Yes.
I think, and I've been diving into this, as most people do, this battle, which I think I've discussed before, of the social media influences in our lives, and have come to the decision that the necessary evil of it, whether you use it for, just being engaged in the world, whether you use it for keeping a connection with your friends and family, which was what it was originally designed for, to what it's become today, which is just busy and chaotic and so much going on all the time in that space. I use it for work. So by default, I am on social media, whether I like it or not. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to make this work for me. And this year, especially, made a conscious effort to remove all the things that don't serve me, or I'm not interested in, or don't make me feel good, and put all the things on there that I am passionate about in my life otherwise. And slowly it has become this network for me. And I've reached out to companies locally and afar that are doing amazing things, saying, how can I help? How do I get involved? How do I share? Because sharing is caring in that world. And becoming more a part of helping grow the audience, because a lot of the people that probably follow me do so because those are the things I share. And most recently, it was a guy I've met locally that's helping with figuring out what to do with plastic in the world in general. He started in Southern California, San Diego, but this is a global issue. But I love these people that aren't afraid to start somewhere. And that's what he's doing. And that's why I support him and I want to help him. And I will go where he needs me to go to ask questions to get him help. And then a friend of mine from Santa Barbara reached out when she saw that post and said, how do we start doing that here? So it's a very impactful platform if we're using it for the right reasons. And it's something that you're passionate about regardless.
And that's one of the things, even though I've known that you're involved in a lot of these passions, it wasn't until during the pandemic you had posted a few things. And I thought, oh, I really want to tell Tish that I too am interested in these same things. And in artificial intelligence, some people have this fear or phobia, if you will. However, if you look at it very simplistically with an agnostic perspective, what it does is it allows you to connect people with the same likings. And so I believe that
Absolutely.
it does do the right thing. And again, I share the same philosophy. I try to not be overindulged because it does affect those who are a little more on the sensitive side. I consider myself a little more on the sensitive side. But there are so many grassroots things that are going on, even in Carlsbad. Maybe you can share a couple of those and then tying it back to how you've been able to draw that information in your social feeds.
Yeah. And I think we talked about this on our prior podcast about sometimes not removing the things that upset you or aren't the things you necessarily want to see, but they're the reminders of the things that need to be fixed and reminders of decisions you make daily. Not everybody wants to see the bad stuff, but sometimes they're good reminders of why you need to make an extra effort today to not do that or to try to participate otherwise. And I think I've organically just kind of grown this for myself because there are things that matter to me. And then slowly you start discovering, like, there's a local company in Carlsbad. Her company is amazing. They make edible coffee cups. And some locals might know her. It's called Amai, and I might be pronouncing it wrong, but she started making them out of oat. And it's turned into her taking byproducts from all the brewing that goes on in our area with craft breweries. And now there's this like circle of life of this product that originally started making beer and now is being turned into an edible coffee cup that people can use commercially to eliminate waste. Coffee cups, plastic lids, all of the above. This replaces that item. And it's actually probably growing faster than they can keep up with. But it's things like that. And I'm like, this is amazing. It took one person thinking outside of the box and creating a product that could eventually change the world on disposable, consumption in that. She could do anything with it. I know Gelato Love locally uses her product. There's some places that you can she's donated to some cleanups that we've done locally just to serve coffee, but such a great concept and such a well done product. So it's things like that. You start to connect to the local community on people that are out there trying to make a difference. And like you said, grassroots, it has to start somewhere. And the more people that get involved and start spreading the word, the bigger these companies' reach can be and more impact they can have on outside of our bubble.
And what is the name of that company?
It's Amai, AMAI. And they're called Amai Edible Cups. Honest, that's their, I know, isn't that crazy?
That is amazing. I remember a few years ago when more grassroots efforts were being started, and someone had mentioned straws that are made of like corn or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I just love that idea. In my home, we have the stainless steel straws so that my son, whenever he wants to drink something, I encourage him. Please use those.
Just the little things, right? Add up over time.
It adds up over time. Absolutely. Yeah. Little things, and we can apply that in all parts of our lives. So what have you seen also in the village area? I mean, you work in that area, in the Carlsbad Village.
Yes. And I've seen actually, through the pandemic, we've talked about the to-go containers and things like that in our prior podcasts, but that change is really starting to be noticeable, which is amazing. And it took getting out of the funk. And I think, businesses are getting back to normal. And they're in a different place altogether. But now that these mandates are really being enforced, there's an incentive for people to kind of get on board. And the products have become more readily available for business owners, which is a huge part of that obstacle. More and more of the compostable to-go containers, the, ban on the single-use plastics, which I think is so ironic. So I'm learning from my friend, and his company's called It's Plastic, or Plastic Beach is what he's trying to eliminate, the plastics that don't have a home. But we're so focused on getting rid of these single-use plastic bags when actually a lot of those are recyclable. It's the plastic that your bread comes in. It's the plastic that Amazon sends you. It's the plastic that's wrapped around the toilet paper at Costco that does not have a place to go. So I see we get so focused on this one thing, then we realize, well, maybe that's not really the biggest issue. It's definitely an issue, but we're so focused there that we're missing this whole huge chunk in the middle of things that are ending up in the landfill. And it wasn't until I got to know him and he educated me on I was like, wow, you're right. This is a big hole that somebody needs to fill and fix. And he's the one that's taking it on.
Well, I'd love to talk to him. I'm one of those people 95% of the time. I mean, there's the 5% where either I'm exhausted or it's an oversight, but I will do like the plastic around the toilet paper,
Right.
take it, or the tube that holds toilet, all those little things all around, constantly making sure I collect them, put them in the recycle. However, I feel like there's a lot of this goes back to what you're talking about, the social media feeds. What are you being educated on? What are you aware of? Because I remember one time someone telling me, oh, you can't recycle Ziplocs. And they said it so matter-of-factly, like they were the authority on the subject. And I'm like, I go out of my way to rinse them and put them in the recycle. So who's really the authority? Just because you sound confident doesn't make you the authority, right?
Right.
Plastic's plastic.
And I feel like it all changes so much. Like, one year we can this, next year you can't that. Now you can't put food in the trash can, which is great. But for someone like me, there's two of us. We don't fill a compost bin in enough time that we want it sitting in our garage for 3 months until it's full and we can put it out. So our neighborhood came up with a different plan. We all collect, we all put it in one can in a common area, and someone puts it out once a week because we all live in that same reality. And I'm like, it just takes a solution, right? People say, well, it takes so much and it just takes you thinking outside the box for a hot second, coming up with a plan, and easiest solution ever.
Well, and maybe that's one of the things that can come out of today's conversation is maybe I can connect with you. One of my friends who lives in Palm Springs, she mentioned that their street has a compost container for the neighborhood. I don't have a compost. I want to have one, but again, a family of 2 versus family of 3, we're still really small, and we just don't produce fast enough.
Yes. And let's be honest, they're gross and stinky and whatever, unless you have a real one and you live on a farm and worms eat it all day or whatever the case may be. But if it's a plastic can, the city's coming to collect once a week. Not the best option for a lot of us, but there's ways around it. And just had to figure out what it was. Now everybody actually participates because you've given them the opportunity to do it in a way that makes sense. And I listened to Priya's podcast and I love what she said. You have to communicate, and that's the only way you come up with solutions. If you're in your silo and you're just saying no to everything because it's inconvenient or doesn't seem to fit in your life, well, then let's figure out a way to make it part of your life or simplify it to a place where it's actually a reality for you.
Yeah, I remember even telling her, oh, I wish I had a garden like in my backyard. Only time and money has always prevented us from building anything in the backyard. But wouldn't it be ideal if you could have your own greens to eat? And it doesn't take much. One of my husband's friends, he was raised with like old school, build your own food, grow your own greens. And whenever we would visit him, he has this like, those ones that are a little bit higher from the ground level, every kind of little vegetable in this little area. But he said it doesn't take much. He and his wife just pull a few greens. He said that's their lunch or dinner that lasts them months.
I was going to say, and it grows back so much faster than we think.
Yes.
If you're only pulling a couple off, and then, Mother Nature's kind of amazing like that.
And I don't know about you, but I cringe at how much I waste. And I don't mean to waste, but you buy a big bag of greens, you think I'm going to use it for X, Y, and Z recipe. And next thing you know, you're throwing away at least half, again, the small family, 1 week you think you're going to make something with those greens or veggies,
Yep.
and it goes to waste. But if it was there,
Yes.
there's so many solutions. When I was talking to our city council member, Priya, the other day on the other podcast, I thought, it wouldn't be great if little pockets of areas and neighborhoods that are just empty lots became communal green.
Yeah. Even if temporary, right? Just to make it useful in the meantime. Yeah.
In the meantime, we did that in grad school, like, building new dorms. But we're like, well, before they build the next dorm, why don't we just use a communal area to build greens?
And it usually takes years for them to do something with empty space. So lots of time. I know I've become a huge fan of the farmers market. Obviously I'm biased because I'm a part of it, but it's really helped me learn that food in bulk, first of all, is too much food for most people. Unless you have a big family, we're never eating that case of tomatoes or whatever we would have bought. And it's not ripe. Like food that comes out of the ground when it's ready and in its season, I knew, but I had no idea until I started buying it. And I realized not everybody can afford to go to the farmer's market and feed their whole family. That's not a reality for a lot, but I find myself buying much less, enjoying it much more, and not wanting to waste it because I know what I paid for it. So there's an incentive to actually use that food within an inch of its life because I'm getting the most out of that I can. And it tastes so much better. I only eat 1 carrot because it's full of flavor and I don't need to eat a whole bag of the taste like water carrots, right?
Well, and I remember visiting my father-in-law, my in-laws a few years ago in the Midwest, and he had his own little mini garden in the back of jalapenos, tomatoes, heirloom tomatoes, what have you. And I remember after a long flight to Indiana, I took a nap, and when I woke up, he had just brought out a big basket of the veggies, and he's like, "What do you want?" I'm like, well, I'm really hungry. I'll try anything. He's like, he just cut me a big farmer's market chunk of feta, a jalapeno, and a tomato. And I just combined them. And I'm like, burst of flavor. Like, and like you were saying, it tastes like water when you get it. Even organic stuff from the market doesn't have flavor. And I usually shop organic.
Yes. And I feel like it's like when you go to a fancy fine dining restaurant and they serve you 2 bites of something, it's because it's such high quality and good flavor that's all you need of it. Yes. So maybe if we stop spending $500 at Costco on all these healthy foods we think we're going to eat, right?
Yeah.
And I love Costco, don't get me wrong, but none of that fruit is ripe or ready to eat. And probably never will get there because it's not on its tree or rooted to anything that keeps feeding it what it needs. So like maybe there's so much less waste and so much less waste of money. If I know we always say this, you go back to the European style of shopping, which for a lot of people is not a reality. They're busy. There's a lot going on, but maybe stop once or twice at the market every week and just pick up what you need instead of the month-long supply of things that will never have much nutritional value in them.
Yeah. And I'm guilty of the fact that particularly during the pandemic and maybe even after I became a mom and was working corporate jobs where I had to drive, I would just load up and put in the refrigerator. I'd make menu of what I was going to make. A third of it would go to waste because let's say you were planning on making some recipe, but by the time you got around to it, you're like, I'll just do a takeout because I'm so exhausted today. Exactly.
Or you got home late. Now you have practice and then all this stuff. And then it's not a reality. You're going home to spend an hour making dinner, right?
Yeah. No, I know. I agree with you. But again, this communication, like you were talking about, helps us think about maybe this conversation today will become the catalyst for a solution that comes out and not too long from now, or maybe a few years from now. Because I truly have thought pockets of land around the neighborhood or smaller shopping, just putting that seed of thought, like I needed to hear it and reinforce. I bought so much carrot because, Santa Claus, reindeers need carrot during Christmas.
And then they're juiced.
I still have the carrots in the refrigerator.
Well, it's funny too, because going back to your AI, these algorithms start to figure out what you're interested in.
Yes.
Which I love, because then they start sending me things that I actually want to see. Like there's a new grocery store, I think it's Lucadia or Encinitas, a no waste grocery store that is opening. So the kind of things that I wouldn't even know existed out there or that are happening come through my feed now because of the things I have shown interest in. And I'm not sure these days where you would get that information otherwise. I don't have TV. I don't see commercials. Magazines are few and far between these days. So where do you see advertisements anymore if they're not on social? And now, better than TV, that algorithm gives me all the things I actually want to see. Not, I'm sure if I followed a lot of car people, it would start sending me car ads, which is great. But I'm not into cars. I want to know about cool travel, eco-friendly destinations in the world, and people out there doing good stuff, cleaning up trash and creating edible cups. That's my jam. That's what I want to see.
And going back to, like you were saying earlier, that a lot of us, for lack of a better expression, got a little bit traumatized during the last few years, particularly the pandemic and post-election, where there was so much polarity, and so some of the information that would come through the feed would influence, this is what the world is. But maybe it is the case, like you were saying, you conscientiously tag and only follow what you need and conscientiously align yourself with information that are part of your core values. So then over time, this algorithm become more intelligent on how to feed you information. Because I too have noticed that I'll get recipes, like, I'm vegetarian for the most part, and I'll be like, whoa, somebody's making these awesome salads, and they're easy and they're simple and they don't require too much waste. So this kind of information starts coming to you. Like before we hit record, I was telling you about having discovered people who do grounding and earthing and are more eco-conscious. Now, once I've mentioned that to you and start sharing it, it may show up in other people's feeds that are in your same network.
I'm sure your phone heard you, so now you're going to get it.
I'm not kidding you. The other day, I'm saying something. I forget the context of what I said, but it was something very obscure. And all of a sudden it showed up in my feed. I'm like, whoa.
That is super smart. Scary smart. Yeah.
Very smart,
Very smart. Yeah. I think it's like all things in life. You create what you want and need from the universe, from your social, from your circles, from your friends and family. And I always find it interesting. I get a lot of the like motivational and inspirational things too, and how the shift in, maybe it's the age group too, where we just get wiser, but creating your circles, whether that means friends, family, social, all of it. Live inside the world you want for yourself. Do the things that make you happy and feed you and fill your cup, and don't apologize for it. Yeah. You're entitled to be in this, in whatever capacity you need to be. Sometimes there's a day I'm like, no social today. I want to rescue all the dogs. I want to save all the elephants. I want to do all of it. And there's no way one person can. But if I do nothing, then that doesn't work either. So you just have to find a balance.
And earlier, before we hit record, remember we were talking about you currently have noticed that you're attracting more opportunities to save the animals and dogs. And I kind of make this comment like, well, you're vibrating on that energetic level where this energy is now opening up to you, saying, here's somebody who can help us. So I truly believe that's true. Like maybe you can share a little bit about that experience.
I hope that's true. I think it is. And I have always believed that what you're putting out to the universe is what you'll get back. So, paying it forward has always been at the top of the list. I just have an affection, probably like most people, for animals. And dogs, there's this weird turn of events where I've always just been involved in that and followed and tried to volunteer and spent some time volunteering at the shelter, which maybe sparked that vibration. And now I feel like there's this circle, and the more I share, the more I find these distant friends, old clients, whoever it is, that reach out and say, I saw you posted about this or that. And I think very small scale, I'm up to 8 dogs now that we've just helped find homes. And for whatever reason it was, like they were looking for that particular breed, or they just wanted to help that dog in that situation that spoke to them. I truly think dogs find you. So there's a reason that these connections happen, but it has been the most probably rewarding thing that's happened in the last year. And it happened, I wasn't trying. Let's just put it that way. It just all started coming together. And I'm so small scale, like there are these rescues, saving thousands of animals. But again, I say to myself, if you can't have some small part, then why not? And do what you can with what you have. And that's how it's turned out. So I'm hoping that vibration just gets bigger and bigger, and I can convince my husband to buy a big property where we have, lots more of those.
That would be really awesome. Just having an environment where you can, I don't know if the right word is foster, but maybe enable that.
I would be a fail for sure. So it's probably not a good idea, but girls can dream, right?
Yeah. Well, you put it out there and it can manifest in what the universe is ready to create. Yeah. Right.
For sure.
I really believe that what you do, Tish, is what you do through your actions, a reflection on your core values. And since I've known you, you've always walked your truth, and you're so authentic and genuine. And that's why I wanted you on this show again, because and I'll probably have you back again, but there's just so many grassroots things that you've already been involved in. And I just love hearing about it.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Because sometimes it feels like it's never going to be enough. But then at the end of the day, if it's one animal, if it's one cleanup, if it's one, which, I have always said it in all of our conversations, you just have to take action. And my new tag is effort is sexy, because personally, I'm attracted to humans who don't just talk. They walk and they make it happen. So for me, luckily, I am with someone like that. But I'm like, if people realized how it's a confidence, right? That you're willing to get out there and do something about issues you're passionate about. And to me, that's a very sexy trait. Humility first, action second.
Call it, what was that expression you just mentioned?
Effort is sexy. That's my new hashtag.
Oh, I love it. I'm going to write that down. Effort is sexy. That might be the title of your podcast.
Right? Maybe someday.
Yeah. Well, that was awesome. Now, anything that I could do a shout out to for grassroots efforts here? We talked about a couple of things, but maybe I'll just mention these things and we could maybe have a second podcast on that. Lotus Trolley Bag, what are they doing?
Lotus Trolley, and I believe there's quite a few that I've come across, because we do some, like artisan market type events too. I come across vendors that I had no idea existed in the world. One of them recently was Rice Love. For every bag you order, they donate a bag of rice to a family in Africa. So there's this pay it forward happening there, which I know so many companies do these kind of things. Bountiful Bags we've worked with recently, and they recycle. All of their materials are made from recycled old items, and they're great because they have so much character. There are things you're not going to find on the rack, right, at a department store or on Amazon. They're made by these two women. So super cool grassroots thing like that is, I think, always something I would support or encourage people to support. Whether it's new small business in town or these groups trying to do good things out there in the world, I think it's super important.
And there's also restaurants now that are doing more sustainable, and especially where we live, because I think we live in the mecca of spirituality.
I think we live in, I would call it fantasy worlds to some extent, where if you left Southern California, it's crazy how much we are offered here and how little there is of that outside this bubble, which is great, but it always reminds me, and my mom is the perfect example of that. I think it's generational too. So she looks at the things I eat and rolls her eyes, and I look at the things she eats and roll my eyes, and we agree to disagree.
I agree, because my husband's from the Midwest, and my mother-in-law or others will hear of what I'm into, and they'll be like, okay. Like
they kind of, they give you that look with that grin, like, crazy.
The other day we were eating something, and I make my son and husband often 90% of the time eat what I make, which is vegetarian. But once in a while they'll have a meat version of something. And the other day my mother-in-law's on the call going, well, what is Shilpa gonna eat? My son's like, well, there's a plant-based version of whatever we're eating.
Aww.
Yeah.
It's good for him to be exposed to that.
Yeah.
Like with our cleanups, I love these families that bring all their little ones and, give them their gloves and give them their bucket, and they all go out as a family and clean up cigarette butts or whatever else is out there. And I'm like, this is such a great opportunity to just show them that it doesn't take much. Spend an hour doing a family walkabout. We did a big blood drive and heart hunt this weekend in the village over the last weekend. And so my brain immediately goes to, there are so many people out here taking steps, and everyone's counting how many steps and how many hours they've been out there doing this. And I'm thinking to myself, why aren't we partnering with some nonprofit who gives monetary value to all these steps for a greater cause? Like, why are we wasting all this collective energy? It's so amazing. And these people are so excited to be out here that it should be. So those kind of things, like, there's always a bigger plan.
Well, you got me so excited just listening to you right now on all facets, whether it's eco-conscious living or communities getting together and doing the right thing by cleaning areas. I just hope that through our conversation, and then perhaps with others that can influence, something more can come out of this.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
And all we can do is put it out there and then see what happens, right?
And then, like you're always saying, take action, right?
Right. Lead by example.
Lead by example.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tish. I will follow up with you on some of these things offline, but I really appreciate you, and I would look forward to having you back.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Sure.
Have a lovely day.
Bye, hon.
Bye. Thanks again for tuning in. Check out the links in the description, and please subscribe, follow, and share, and continue to practice Omni Mindfulness.